Morning, everybody, and welcome to our supplier engagement webinar. Today's webinar is focused on doing construction at the Idaho National Laboratory. And I thank each of you for giving us 3 hours of your time. I know that that's a huge block of time to be parked in front of a computer screen. But we have a lot of information to share, and we have a lot of experts here who are going to help walk you through the process of what it takes to do business, specifically construction, at the Idaho National Laboratory. So with that, there's a couple little housekeeping announcements. We're going to hold all questions till the end today because of the fact that we do have so much information to get through in 3 minutes, or 30 minutes, 3 hours. Goodness, I hope everybody has a cup of coffee because I should have grabbed another one apparently. We've got a lot of information to get through, so we're going to hold the questions till the end. There is a question feature in your navigation bar for this GoToWebinar, and you can put your questions in there, and Michelle Goff will be moderating those, and then at the end of the presentations, just about 12 o'clock, we will jump into and answer those questions. We do have the connection open past 12 o'clock if the questions go beyond that. So with that, to all of my guest presenters, thank you. You can hide your faces for now. And Ed, I have 2 quick slides. If you want to stay on there with me, you're fine.
Okay.
So one of the things that I wanted to show, and I already went through my first slide so fast, is kind of where the INL spends its money. And I pulled this by the NAICS codes that we use, and you'll see that the #1 NAICS code for spend is the commercial and industrial construction. So if you are doing business within that industry, you are in the right place today. The other thing I wanted to mention is that the INL does have a preference for small business. We do have a goal that we negotiate with DOE every year, and that's to spend 51% of our procurement volume with small business. And then we also like to capture the other socioeconomic categories underneath that as well. And then our favorite one is that Idaho Business Concerns goal, where that's a 30% goal of spend within the state of Idaho. So spending that money right here in our own backyard. So with that, that was just my quick little overview of our small business preference and our obligations. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ed Anderson.
Okay, thanks, Stacy. I'm Ed Anderson. I am the Facilities and Site Services Deputy Director and Chief Operating Officer, which is a very long title for a very short guy. So those of you that know me are probably smiling right now. I started at the INL in 1984 as a young construction engineer, and I've spent most of my career here in construction. I was a general on the outside for a number of years in the 90s, but currently responsible for the construction management organization at the INL. And I just wanted to give you just kind of, I guess, my thoughts briefly on the philosophy and the environment here at the INL. It's a very different place. It's a very happy place in my mind. And I want to talk through some of the important elements there. So within the construction management organization, if you're not aware, the folks that you're going to spend the most time with are construction field representatives. They're part of the construction management organization. They are from the industry and have joined us to help manage work at the INL. They're highly experienced, and their primary function is to provide oversight for Battelle as the contractor and to facilitate your work execution at the site with facilities, with the area, to allow you to execute as efficiently as possible. They're not cops. In fact, they're team members. And so as you come into the INL, it's a different atmosphere with a construction field rep there. You know, we are not for profit at the INL.
Ed, we've lost your audio.
construction work.
Oh,
And
there
so
you're
we
back.
need you.
We lost your audio.
Am I,
So we got to where the INL is a unique environment.
oh, wow. That's like from the beginning.
I know, I was trying to get back to you and I couldn't find my unmute
Oh,
button.
okay. All right, well, I'm only good for one shot. No, I'll try again. Here we go. So unique environment at the INL. It's a happy place to work. And as you'll get from this discussion briefly here, the main thing here for us is safety. And we'll talk to that briefly in a minute. But construction management, I'm responsible for construction management, and their primary contacts with my organization are going to be construction field representatives, CFRs. And these folks are from the industry, highly experienced, and very familiar with the INL and the nuances of working here. And their primary function is to provide oversight for our construction work on site and to facilitate your execution of work in the most efficient way possible. For example, working with facilities, the different attributes INL, your CFRs are not field cops, they are field teammates. And I want to stress that. We work together with our contractors here. The next item, we need you, we need you. So 2 years ago was a record year for the INL for infrastructure investments. Last year was another record year for infrastructure investments, well in excess of $250 million in infrastructure investments in construction facilities here at the INL. So it's a busy place. And we're competing with, the bloom of construction across the nation. And so we need you. And we will work very hard to keep you here once we attract you to work here at the INL. Now, the two elements I really want to get across to you here are safety and just culture. This is a highly regulated federal reservation where safety is primary over production, over schedule, over performance. Safety comes first. And I'm going to introduce kind of a new concept that the INL is following. This is a little more modern lens for looking at safety and execution of work, and it's called failing safely. And here's the slight difference. It's more focused on the human than the paperwork, the policy, or the procedure. So would you agree that we all come with an error rate? Yep, all humans do, 5 to 7 errors an hour. I'm an overachiever. I try to make 10 mistakes an hour. Most of those don't matter. Would you agree that you cannot punish away that human condition? No, you can't. Although I had the urge this last weekend when one of my grandkids ran out of the kitchen with a glass of chocolate milk and face planted in our white carpet in the living room. Would you agree it's difficult to write a work instruction to mitigate the human condition? Yeah. And would you also agree it's pretty ineffective to tell somebody to not do what they didn't intend to happen in the first time? So failing safely doesn't try to mitigate the human condition. Failing safely accepts it. All of us come with an error rate. The best receiver on a football team is going to drop the ball once in a while. You or one of your teammates or myself are going to make a mistake, and most of them won't matter, but sometimes things can go really sideways. Failing safely is taking a look at those critical steps, important steps, where if something went sideways, it could really damage equipment or it could hurt somebody. That we're considering those ahead of time and putting barriers in place. We ratchet up the probability from, well, I've done this a million times, no big deal, to, well, yeah, I've done this a million times, but this time something's going to go sideways at this critical step. What are my barriers to protect me, my people, and the equipment? So that's a different lens, but it is a lens that we're applying at the INL, and it works. Learn and grow. We will likely have events together. In our space, when we have an event, an accident, we try to stay in learn and grow space. What happened? What do we got to do to not go to that space again? Okay, and much different than the automatic punitive response. Okay, you did something that was an accident, now I'm gonna nail you with some sort of penalty. We try to stay out of that space completely. We try to stay in the learn and grow area, but Please know at the INL, we have a regulator. In fact, in my building, there's 300 regulators sitting right upstairs, where safety incidents of any kind are significant. And even if it's a near miss, nobody got hurt, no equipment got damaged, but it was a near miss to a significant event, it's a significant event. And our regulator holds us accountable to a process that's slow, that's thorough, with the purpose of clearly understanding what happened in a safety event, analyzing how we got there, and putting corrective actions in place so that we don't go there anymore. That's fundamental here at the INL. And at times when you have a really complex work execution, an iteration, sometimes you may have to go slow to go fast. Going slow is a lot faster than being shut down because of a safety event. So a different attribute here at the INL, it is safety first. And I'm very proud of that working here. I know I'm going home to my family safely because of that demeanor at the INL. The last thing I'll talk to you about is partnering and trust. Trust is not something that's just an esoteric, gosh, I hope I earn it over time. It's a project. It takes action to make it happen. And we've been fortunate, my organization, to enjoy very long-term trusting relationships here at the INL. The kind of relationship where our subs are comfortable calling myself or the staff in construction management. Myself or my staff are comfortable calling the construction manager or construction subcontractor, going to their office to talk about issues or things that we can work out better between us. We want to stay in that space where we're transparent and we build trust. And I've enjoyed some super relationships here. I'll pick on one guy that's in the crowd, Dana Troutner, who is the chairman of the Eastern Idaho Contractors Association. He's what's the politically correct term? I guess we are pretty senior at this point. But we started out together 37 years ago at the INL, and we're still working together. And Dane and I have a relationship where, you know, if he's got something going on with his guys, he'd really like some discussion with us on what we see from our side. How can we correct issues? We'll go to Dana's shop. He'll invite us in. Or Dana will come in here and talk to me and tell us where I need to be paying attention. And the cool thing is, I know, even though Dana and I might be on the opposite side of an issue, I absolutely know everything that comes out of his mouth, everything he says is for the betterment of the situation for both of us. And that's the kind of trusting long-term relationship we want to build with you here at the INL. It's comfortable, it's efficient, and it's more fun. And so I guess that's my environment. Are you going to see it everywhere? No, not consistently across the side, I would say, but at least within construction management and this organization, we sure strive for that. And in fact, if you don't see it, you need to call me on it. Okay, trust matters. So I guess we're going to take questions at the end, so I'll hang around for that. And with that messaging, I'd like to turn it over to Rick Staten, who will give you an update on construction.
Thanks, Ed. Appreciate it. So Stacy asked me to provide an update on the expression of interest that I had issued back in May of last year on relevance to a general contractor for small construction. And just to give you a couple ideas, the reason we did it is that we've been looking at several options to find a more inexpensive means of performing construction, particularly small construction, because affordability has become challenging to us. I mean, we're stewards of the taxpayers' money, and it's, you know, DOE puts that responsibility on us to try and make things as affordable as possible. And so we're trying to, the intent of that was to look, it was one of several options, like I said, on trying to help maintain costs at a reasonable level. As the responses had come back, we'd received responses from several companies, both local and out of state, that expressed interest. And where we're at today is, you know, COVID-19's affected everybody as well as us. And we're still exploring that option as well as other options. The key thing that we're currently working on is identifying and implementing a planning strategy to better organize and execute the work that we need from all of you. And so that's just a little clip as to where we're at in that. And so if you've got any questions to that, you can bring them up at the end. Amy, on to you.
That was quick, Rick. Thank you. I appreciated the update myself. So to be connected here with this strong team that's tied to construction at Idaho National Laboratory. I'm Amy Lintz, and I'm the director of the supply chain for our energy programs at Idaho National Laboratory. And the supply chain to us includes the goods and the materials, as well as the workforce that we need, particularly as we take on a lot of new missions at the Idaho National Laboratory. So if you don't mind, if you can go to this next slide. I like to show this slide to put things in perspective of what's ahead of us. And granted, not every one of these projects on this slide will happen at Idaho National Laboratory. There's the potential that they will, and there's also the reality that we still need to provide a lot of infrastructure support to many of these projects, whether they're ours directly or whether they're the other contractors on the INL site. So on this timeline, you can see there's a lot of mega projects hitting us in the next 5 to 7 years. It starts with a lot of discussion, a lot of opportunity around the microreactors. In fact, just recently, you probably saw some news releases on the public comment periods coming for microreactors. Additionally, right now that's happening at the Idaho National Laboratory site, not overseen by Battelle Energy Alliance, is what's happening at the Naval Reactors facility. So they've already started construction on the Naval Spent Fuel Handling facility and also have a large project coming. These are like $2 billion projects, the cask shipping and receiving facility and overpack facility. So although we're not talking about that today, it's really important to see the bigger picture to understand this is happening also on the INL site. And then of course there's the versatile test reactor out for public comment. We hope, personally, I hope it's at the Idaho National Laboratory site. There's also the potential that Oak Ridge could be chosen for that location as well. Then there's advanced reactor demonstrations. And then of course, a lot of you have heard about the small modular reactors in the NuScale project. So I wanted to show that landscape because these are the mega projects happening at the Idaho National Laboratory site, and none of the operations will ever happen unless the construction happens. And this is in addition to all of the other projects that are happening in terms of construction that Ed mentioned earlier on. So Stacy, next slide. So one of the things that I am tasked with doing is really helping a coordination function, not only internal to INL, but also with a lot of our other partners. Our partners that are other contractors, but our partners that are in education, a lot of our building trades, the USW, as well as working with the other local suppliers in the region. So we can really understand how we can work together on this. Wanted to show this number. At Idaho National Laboratory, with new construction, we anticipate in the next 4 years that we'll need about 1,184 new construction workers. And that's, again, just us. There's also long-term needs that we have in terms of hiring, and our latest estimates show that we'll probably need about an additional 135 union workers to fill some of our permanent positions within INL. So again, there's a lot of construction happening, not only with our other contractors, but these numbers don't include the other additional regional growth that's happening, and it doesn't include attrition. Some of us aren't getting any younger these days, and so there is essentially a concern that we have that we're going to see a lot more people retiring, and so we did not necessarily grab on to all of the numbers associated with turnover here. I think it's also important to note that we subcontract a lot of our construction work, and whether it's subcontracted or whether we work some of these projects internally, we have found that the most difficult construction positions to fill are electricians, pipe fitters, HVAC mechanics, construction carpentry, masonry, and welding. And this is the same story as we talk to our other partners within the region and on the INL site. So I guess another point of note is that often what we see in these larger projects, that skilled craft does sometimes come from outside the state, but we also find that a lot of them stay here. Who doesn't want to? We love it here. And with a lot of opportunities along the way, there's a lot of opportunity for people to stay. But then we also have a lot of non-skilled craft that we're able to get regionally, and we can find that readily. But we also recognize how important it is to start building that pipeline. So those conversations are happening, as I mentioned, to really understand what recruiting we need to do, how can we really make sure that we build the awareness of these great opportunities in construction, as well as making sure that we have the capabilities, the training centers, the equipment, the instructors, everything that we need to make sure we build this pipeline. So next slide. This last slide that I'm just going to give you a sneak peek at is really an eye chart for some of you. We'll again post this information on, and Stacy will make sure that happens. But this is the INL essentially projections as we're looking at. The green bars are associated with the versatile test reactor. As that project moves forward and moves into a construction phase, and hopefully at INL, you can see what a load it's going to be in terms of the number of people in these specific categories. The blue numbers are associated with the projects that are happening now that we have planned outside of the versatile test reactor. So we will continue to modify this, update it, and work with our partners to make sure we clearly understand where our highest needs are. So I appreciate all of you signing in today. So I'm going to turn that over to Debbie Tate, who's going to give a good discussion on what's happening in terms of planning and space management. So Debbie?
Yeah, thank you, Amy. Happy to be here to talk to all of you today. I think I missed last year or the year before, but we still have quite an exciting future of new infrastructure and modernization of our infrastructure going on at the laboratory. So if you want to jump to the next slide. Can you hear me? Oh, yes. Okay, thanks. So some of you may have seen this before. This data, by the way, is all-encompassing when you look at Idaho National Laboratory as a whole. Our infrastructure is much like municipalities such as the city of Shelley, not quite as big as the city of Idaho Falls. However, geographically, we are bigger. So you can see some of the data points for both town and site. You know, our reservation at the site consists of 890 square miles, which is quite a large chunk of DOE withdrawn land. Overall, DOE owns about 540 real property assets. Real property assets in our world consist of not only facilities, but also things like major systems or components. So for example, the ATR reactor by itself would be considered a real property asset, not just the building. So you can see we've got 4 operating reactors. There's several miles of primary roads, numerous substations. We actually, DOE owns and we operate a power grid out on the site that is actually separate from, you know, Rocky Mountain Power and Idaho Power. So we've got many miles of high voltage electrical transmission lines that we are responsible for maintaining and taking care of. We've got about 17.5 miles of a DOE-owned railroad spur that leads in off of a Union Pacific spur coming out of Blackfoot. We've got 3 fire stations, there's a landfill. We actually operate a National Historical Landmark on behalf of DOE, and many of us all know that as EBR1. So combined, and not only that, here in town, we've got over 17 lease facilities, and a lot of those are on MK Simpson Boulevard. So there is a lot of infrastructure that we are responsible for maintaining, operating, and also planning for future development. So next slide. So priorities of the laboratory right now with respect to its infrastructure development really center around the National Reactor Innovation Center that some of you may have heard of. And when you look at it, or as we call it, INRIC, because we love our acronyms, the infrastructure development priorities for the lab are in fact centered around enabling INRIC. And INRIC, by the way, is kind of the umbrella under which you will see the advanced microreactor developments coming on to the site in the future. We also have other capabilities that are within INRIC. So much of our infrastructure, planned infrastructure developments and modernization is going to be and is happening under the facilities or the complexes that help support the INRIC mission. And if you're familiar with the geography, this of course includes the Advanced Test Reactor Complex, Materials and Fuels Complex, and then of course the Central Facilities area. There are also some of the investments will happen here in town, although not quite as many. So if you keep that in mind, that is our priority right now, is to help enable the INRIC part of the DOE nuclear energy mission. Next slide. And as Amy just mentioned, one of the big investments that we are very hopeful that Idaho National Laboratory gets is the Versatile Test Reactor. And the VTR, another acronym that we love, is a huge investment on behalf of the Department of Energy that is a key cornerstone piece of infrastructure that's part of INRIC. And to give you a couple of little more detailed numbers, you can see CD1, and CD1 may not mean much, to the outside world. It means something to Battelle Energy Alliance, but that was a big milestone when it was approved by the Department of Energy in September. Now, currently, what that enables is the draft environmental impact statement is out for review, as Amy mentioned, and if in fact INL is chosen as the preferred site, you can see over to the right, the little blue table. What that means is that we will immediately start the construction activities. And you can see the point estimate there is about 3.5 to 3.6 B, and we say that's a capital $1 billion with per their calendar milestones, all construction will need to be finished by 2026. So for a large project like that, it's a very aggressive schedule when you think of it in terms that it's within a 5-year window. So pretty exciting. We're optimistic that there will be a favorable outcome from the EIS, that INL is in fact a preferred siting location, and stay tuned. So next slide. So right now, and I haven't shown, our next 5 or 10 years worth of investments. And when I say these investments, these are only investments that are under the purview of Battelle Energy Alliance. These are not other site contractor infrastructure investments. These are purely BEA. So coming up, and when I say coming up, this is imminent or early next year, or late summer next year. You can see very, very soon, you should be expecting to see solicitations on the street for a new MFC Materials and Fuels Complex security building. The current estimated size is about a 14,000 square foot building. It likely will be largely office, although there may be some specialty rooms that will be included in that. And that RFP, request for proposal, will be coming out very soon. Another one is up at Test Area North. We are renovating a cafeteria up there. It's about 6,500 square feet. The renovation includes basically gutting a large portion of the building and then going back in with new improvements such as HVAC, electrical, and of course interior furnishings. And that should be coming out very soon. And when I say soon, sometime within the next 3 to 4 months. We have a new advanced test reactor administration building that's going in and funded now. It's about roughly 17,000 square feet. This building is a duplicate of the one that is actually in the process of being constructed at MFC right now, and it'll be nearing completion in April. So this administrative building is a duplicate of that. It's estimated in late spring. You should be seeing a request for proposal for the construction of that building. We also have a big parking lot. We're redoing the parking lot at MFC. It's about 600 stalls. You can see about 8.5 acres. And that request for proposal should be coming out soon. National security, these projects coming up right now, excuse me, the ATR dial room. We're in the process of actually strategically making some decisions there. It's on a hold pattern right now, and hopefully we'll be able to get that kicked loose once a decision is made. The National Security Test Range, and these are projects that are slated for next year, next fiscal year, which I have to remind people, INL is already, we're already 8.5 months into fiscal year 21. So September is coming up rapidly, in my opinion. Anyway, about a 20,000 square foot new facility out at our National Security Test Range. This is a location that is just north of the Materials and Fuels Complex. Probably largely an office building, although it may have some training rooms in there. The next one is a INRIC, Industry Collaboration Facility, another 20,000 square foot facility that would be located at MFC. We also have a very small, we call it an in vivo detection facility, about 3,000 square feet. That is a facility that enables us to do whole body counting and routine surveys for radiation workers. And these, of course, are slated for next year. We also have when you hear the term an EBR2 reactor renovation demonstration test bed, that is still in the works, which is why I have a TBD to be determined. We are waiting for basically final authorization from headquarters on the funding amount for that. So I don't have any numbers on that just yet. And then we also have a new, this was just funded, and it's actually it's funded at $12 million. And I apologize for the difference there. A new CFA Safeguards and Security Training Facility. We just found out we got the funding for that, and this will be largely a shooting range, an indoor shooting range with some breakout training rooms and a few offices. And they're just barely getting their feet under them on this one, and so I wouldn't expect a request for a proposal until maybe late 2022. Could be sooner. They're just barely doing some advanced pre-planning. So that's kind of what we have for what I consider to be new facilities. So if you want to go to the next slide. And this will show you where these new facilities are proposed to be located. So if you're familiar with the Advanced Test Reactor Complex, you can see the ones I've highlighted with the yellow dashed lines are their proposed locations. So the ATR administrative building, you can see over here, and I get my directions messed up at ATR all the time. So this would be to the south. And then there's a dial room, and you can see it likely will be a prefabricated hut that we will start moving equipment into. And next slide. There we go. The materials and fuels complex. And I'm not going to talk about the projects that are already underway, such as the sample prep lab. But you can see the parking lot is where we have, we're going to be refurbishing that entire parking lot. We do have temporary parking that's already been identified during this project. So that's kind of a big deal out there. And then you can see towards the north, that's the proposed location right now for the new security support building that hopefully you'll see the RFP for that come out pretty soon. Next slide. At the central facilities area, the only new facility, as I mentioned, was this brand new safeguards and security training facility that we were pleased to hear got funded. And you can see it's located towards probably the northwest section out there by an existing shooting range that we have. So for that one, and then next slide. And out at Test Area North, or the specific manufacturing capability location, there's already a vehicle maintenance support building that's underway. It's already been bid and awarded, but you can see our SMC cafeteria is located outside the fence of the main SMC complex. But this is where that 6,500 square foot cafeteria and dining hall facility will be. That facility will continue to be a cafeteria, but also serve as a conferencing type facility. They do host quite a few high-level visitors that come out there from the Army, and our goal there is to have a state-of-the-art conference room that's kind of multi-purpose. So be excited to see that one happen. Okay, next slide. Sorry, my phone. Here in town, you know, we don't have any new construction going on, but I wanted to highlight the fact that we do have 2 currently leased facilities that are going to be coming up for competitive lease acquisition. One is known as the INL Administrative Building, and you can see where it's highlighted here, number 4. And it is largely just an office building. So we've already issued an expression of interest for that, and we will be rolling out a request for proposal here very soon, maybe even as soon as the end of the month on that facility. We're looking for 60 to 100,000 square feet of office space as part of that lease acquisition. And then the other one, which I can't show on this map because geographically it's not located there, but we have a North Holmes Lab lease that we will be hopefully competing. North Holmes Lab is located in an old IGA store that is over by the Fred Meyers building here in Idaho Falls. And this space, I believe we're looking for 30 to 50,000 square feet of industrial space that includes high bay. I can't give you a timeline on that one just yet for the request or the expression of interest or the request for proposal. We're waiting for a go signal from our senior management, but you should expect those 2 lease acquisitions will be coming up very soon. Next slide. So in addition to facility acquisitions, you can see we always have general purpose infrastructure that we're going to be soliciting for. I will tell you, you know, right now the list isn't as extensive as maybe what you've seen in the past. That's actually not a surprise because anytime the laboratory sees administrative change, such as with our new president-elect, the budget slows up a bit because DOE and E, for example, you know, everybody's just kind of in a holding pattern. And when we see ourselves in a continuing resolution, we have to maintain certain spending levels. Now, you should start seeing this list start to expand. We do have other projects that have been in the advanced pre-planning stage waiting for funding to show up. But currently, some of the larger projects, for example, there's a new compressed air handling system acquisition here in town over at the Energy Systems Laboratory on MK Simpson Boulevard. That project is in the conceptual planning stage right now, and what this scope involves is moving some existing compressed air systems out of the building and outside into a small structure so we can open up some space for more research. There is a deep well pump replacement that will be, that solicitation should be coming out, and the location is actually out at close to CFA. For that one, we will also have another one next year that we've got to get taken care of up at the Test Area North location. Here in town again, we have our main data center in the new collaborative computing center. We've got some UPS replacements that need to happen, as well as we have a data center in our engineering research office building, the main large building there on Freeman Boulevard. There's going to be numerous roof repairs and/or replacements. Of course, we continue to have our primary and secondary road repairs right now. Currently, because the funding is focused on enabling INRIC right now, we don't have any large chunks of roadway that we're going to be replacing, although that is subject to change as we get just a little further into the fiscal year. Miscellaneous sidewalks, concrete pours, and then we also continue to have focus on our life safety systems and fire protection systems. So I can't identify any particular project other than the first couple ones, but stay tuned because these will start popping up now that we have an approved budget. So pay attention there. And I already mentioned the 2 lease acquisitions that you'll probably be seeing. Again, we've done the expression of interest for the office space, but we will hopefully be hitting the streets with an RFP by the end of January. And then the industrial space is the North Holmes Lab lease that you should be expecting to see. So next slide. And this just kind of gives you an overview, of 5 years, kind of a funding profile plan. And these are just purely planned estimates. It's hard once you really don't know what your actuals are until you finish the year, but it kind of gives you an idea. Projects greater than 20 million. We only have one right now, and that is the sample preparation lab. Now, hopefully, if the EIS is approved for the versatile test reactor and INL is declared, the preferred site, you'll see these numbers jump substantially to cover the construction costs for that new facility. So right now, greater than 20 million is just purely the sample prep lab. Projects 500,000 to 20 million. You can see currently we have about $61 million in the system right now that's paying for those types of projects. I already listed a couple. For example, the new administrative buildings at MFC and ATR, the new security buildings at MFC and CFA, and that's a lot of what comprises that number. And then you can see next year and the following years, and these consist of both laboratory funded, we call that indirect funding, and also direct funding that comes from headquarters. And don't get too excited about the out years. Our planning window is usually 0 to 3 years because we're aligned with the federal budget planning cycle. And, when you start talking 24, 25, you kind of have to take that with a grain of salt. That does not mean, there's going to be a severe economic downturn. This is just because we don't have granularity in planning numbers at the moment. So you'll see like if we did this a year from now, you'll see these numbers are very likely to jump up where they probably are right now. So decommissioning and demolition, these are some estimates right now. We really don't have any large projects. We're not like DOE EM, environmental management. They are the federal agency that is tasked with taking care of the high hazardous type decommissioning or demolition activities. in our world, that may mean we have a highly contaminated building or, you know, stuff like that. So our organization, BEA, we typically don't do that type of high hazard work. But we do have small stuff every now and then, you know, a little shed or something that needs to be taken down. And so that's kind of what these numbers represent. And I think that's it, Stacy, or yes. So please feel free to reach out if you have any questions on the infrastructure investment. And I really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Debbie. I appreciate that. We have not been able to find Dave Inskeep this morning, and so with a quick text email message to Aaron Blomquist, he is going to step in here and he's going to cover Dave's slides, which he has not seen yet. So everybody give a round of applause for Aaron for stepping up. Aaron, can you log in? Do you want to put your camera? There you are. Okay.
Here I am.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Glad to help out where I can. So hopefully I can give you guys a good overview of what the site stabilization agreement is. You know, why we have it, you know, what it does for us, and what does it do for you guys too as well. So really, just a quick overview of what actually the site stabilization agreement is. It's an agreement between all the unions, but there's 3 parties to it now, and there is the Battelle Energy Alliance, Fluor, Idaho, and now NRF has also signed up to it as well this last year, and to be the operators for it. And it basically provides the BE that we all have our workforce is going to be supplied for us, and that there's no strikes, there won't be any layoffs. You know, there's nobody out there that can not be able to provide the workforce that is needed to ensure that we get the construction projects done that is needed, especially in a timely manner. So it really helps solidify the workforce for us, and it helps solidify you as contractors. It helps be able to create a pool of potential employees or employees that you currently have that are guaranteed, I guess, jobs out there, if you will, and positions to be able to have a place to work. And then also another criteria, or there's 3 parts to the site stabilization. There's the agreement between the unions, agreement between the operating contractors, and then there is a grievance process as well. So there's a lot of benefits to this site stabilization agreement for you. The executive board looks over and ensures that looks over the contractors' interests that are happening out there, that each union, there's a couple of executive board members. I think it's a 12-member board, or it could be a 13-member board. I can't remember the actual number, but it's comprised of contractors. It's comprised of representatives from each of the organizations I previously mentioned. So there's quite a conglomerate of people that helps represent us to make sure that the best interests for everybody that's working out there are being met and taken care of. So let's go to the next one. I think there's going to be a lot of questions. The frequently asked questions for the site stabilization agreement. All these questions can be found, just for you guys, just so you guys know that they are able to be found. If you go on your Google and your Chrome or whatever you want to use, you can type in site labor coordinator, and you'll be able to find all those these questions and their answers on there as we go, but we can go through these today. So what positions apply under the site stabilization agreement? There actually are a lot of positions underneath the site stabilization agreement. If you print out a copy, they are all located and itemized out in Appendix A. You know, some of the examples are superintendents. There's time time clerical worker, there is pipe fitters, there's electricians, there's equipment operators, asbestos workers, you name it. There's I want to say probably 20 or 30 different positions in there. Teamsters is another one. So all your standard unionized kind of classifications are the positions under the site stabilization agreement. Only have a few employees. Do I have to follow the SSA? Yes, you have to follow the site stabilization agreement. Even with just a few employees, if you're a signatory, yes. Simple enough, right? What does it mean to be signatory? That's a good question. What does it mean to be signatory? So basically, all it means is that you have signed an acceptance signature sheet that you have turned in, that you will be able to, that you say and attest to that you will follow the terms and follow those conditions and terms laid forth in the site stabilization agreement. That you'll be, and then also too that you may utilize your apprentices or whatever else you've got there through your respective crafts that you use. What are the future impacts of becoming signatory? Well, the future impacts could be great, right? You could get a lot of jobs, eventually, potentially have a nice place to work out here for BEA and be able to have a nice steady flow of projects and stuff out there. You're continually be obligated to the terms and conditions of the SSA. There's wage negotiations that go on. There are at the end of the job, there's a lot of things there to whether you can lay off guys or rehire people. There's a lot of impacts then that's all spelled out though, and how you can do that in the site stabilization agreement. It's all there anyway. You're just pretty much right there with what you can do. So what if an employee doesn't work out? That's a good question, right? There is a procedure spelled out in the site stabilization agreement. There's an article in there that helps define how to handle this and to follow through with this, to do it the correct way. And there are places you do not have to rehire anyone, terminated for cause. You can request another applicant, no problem at all, right out of the hiring hall. The documentation is correct. Like I say, there is a provision in the site stabilization agreement to ensure that you've got the correct workforce working for you to enhance your job and the culture you guys want to create for your company. What if the union has no employees available? Well, that's another good question that comes up quite a bit. So if the unions cannot supply the workforce and the workmen within 48 hours, they have 48 hours to do this, then you as an employer can go in and secure any workforce you can to be able to fill those vacant positions that are needed. If, like I say, the union has 48 hours to fill those positions for you. If not, you're on your own to be able to get your own workforce and get them out there. What type of employees do I have to hire? Well, all of the above, right? Yeah, it all depends on the crafts and stuff that you need for the project you're doing. So yeah, like I say, it all depends on the project and the duties you're performing in that project. It could vary anywhere from pipe fitters to carpenters to concrete finishers to electricians to who knows, right? Benefits. Benefits. That's a good question. Even if you do provide benefits, there is a wage package that is spelled out in the in Appendix A of the site stabilization agreement, and there are some benefits that are for certain percentages and stuff that have been negotiated to like I want to say it's a 401k, but it's not. But anyway, you guys get what I'm saying. There are, and then there's union dues, and there's a couple things there that there's a pension fund for the crafts, health and welfare fund. There's a training fund, depending on what agreement there is. But like I say, it's all spelled out in Appendix A of the site stabilization agreement for each of those, each of the respective craftsmen that are spelled out there. Each have their own type of a deal that way, benefits that they have to pay. Yeah, increases to wages. I know every year there seems to be that these wages have been negotiated prior to agreement. So the site stabilization just got renegotiated for another 5 years span, and they've negotiated the wage increases happening in the time frame of June. Every June there's usually a 3 to 4% wage increase per deal, but that will be discussed with you when you sign up and become signatory. Those will be spelled out, and they are in Appendix A as well, spelled out. Benefit payments due to the union funds. When do they due? Well, yeah, when you have to pay in, how does that happen? Each trust has due dates with payments are to be made, and the appropriate unions that you are paying into for those funds do have that information for you, and it is located in Appendix A to be able to know which unions you are obligated to pay those funds in their deals that way. Per diem. Yeah, this is a good question. Yeah, per diem. There is a per diem that has been assigned to because we're out quite a ways out there on this on the desert. I think that got negotiated this year for the site stabilization agreement. I think it's $50 a day. I think is what it got it increased. It used to be $35 a day. I want to say that got increased to $50 a day for per diem per any time you go out to the desert. It's an additional. So 10-hour day, it's basically an extra $5 an hour that you're getting. You do have to pay that per diem every day on the if you're on a straight time, 4-10-hour work week, or if 5-8, 980s, whatever you're on out. If you go out to the site, yeah, that is required to pay. I think the next slide, right? Overtime rates. Overtime is just like anywhere else. It's 1.5. First 10 hour with a 4-10 schedule, which is most of the desert out there. There's first 10 hours of straight time, then all the hours after that are we'll see, after 1.5 times a straight time rate of pay. Then everything after 10 hours, after Fridays, Saturdays, the Fridays and Saturdays, the first 10 hours are 1.5 times the straight time pay. Then if you work 12 or 14 hours, then it's 2 times. That's double. If you work over those 10 hours, it is paid at the double time rate. So those will be explained to you, and then those are also located in the site stabilization agreement, in an article in the site stabilization agreement. Those are spelled out as well. Those overtime rates and how they're applied during those times. Even specifies holidays and things like that as well. Do you have to pay the employee the whole day, even though they're not out of the desert the whole day? No, you do not. Those make work practices, a 40-hour work week is not guaranteed under this agreement. So even though you're traveling out there and you're only out there for 2 hours, doesn't mean you have to pay them for 10 hours. How do I get signed up as a signatory contractor? Well, that would be contacting the site labor coordinator, which is Dave Inskeep. And you say get on the website or get on your Internet Explorer, or Google Chrome, or Firefox, whatever you get on there, and just type in site labor coordinator. It should come up and be able to click on their website, and all this contact information is right there. It's a quick link. Be able to get together, be able to have a meeting. You may be able to email this stuff and do it over the phone or on Teams, and do it all PDF wise too as well in this times of COVID and everything too. There are definitely ways to mitigate those deals. Next. Do I have to pay my employees to do drug testing, training, and site access? The answer is yes. You know, they should be paid for medicals related to all the construction work covered by the INL Site Stabilization Agreement. So the site stabilization does also describe what you are required to pay for and how these guys are supposed to go through that to get that stuff done. Do I have to pay my employees once a week, even though I pay bi-monthly? The answer is yes. Yeah, where it's Davis-Bacon wages and everything, you do have to pay on a weekly. It's required. Federal law requires you to be paid once a week on that. What I get when I get a job, what is a pre-job conference? Well, these are pretty handy, these pre-job conferences. These conferences inform the unions of the scope of the job. So it helps with the size, length, the start date, estimated, how many crafts you're going to be needing, how many people you need to be employed, the general description of the overall project. There's a lot of items there through those pre-job conferences, which are pretty handy to attend and listen to. It helps educate you as the future employer there, and also BEA or whoever the operating contractor is on those. So those are pretty handy. Is it permissible to use one craft to help other craft do their work? No, it's really not. It's they're either the craft or what it is. And the craft are defined in the craft jurisdiction in their national agreements. So ensure that each person you hired is the representative craftsman that you need on that job. So otherwise it causes problems, as you guys can well understand. One union is doing another union's work. That's a bad deal. So next. We're almost done, huh? We fought through this well. So does a site stabilization agreement apply to project off the INL site, even if the project is in Idaho Falls? Pretty much the site stabilization agreement only applies to that 820 square mile area that's out there on the desert area. And as you can see in that map right there, that's what the site stabilization agreement applies to. It does not apply to in-town and Idaho Falls areas or those facilities. Now, Davis-Bacon, where we're federally funded, Davis-Bacon does apply to the in-town stuff, but the site stabilization does not. And with that, I think that's the last slide. You want to go to the next one? Oh yeah, yep. So site stabilization resources, there again, there's quick links. There's stuff that way. Like I say, you get on the website, there it is right there, sitelaborcoordinator.com. Pretty easy to get to, and this website is very easy to maneuver and look at and get stuff that way. So further, I definitely refer you to that. It's a great source of information. And Dave is a great source too. He's been with he's actually one of the original negotiators, I guess, or creators of the site stabilization agreement back in the, I want to say late 70s, maybe early 80s of this agreement. So, and with that, just to give you guys an idea, we have about, I think there's over 800 contractors that are signatory to the site stabilization agreement right now. Over 800. Can you believe that? It's crazy. But I know for the majority of it, there may be anywhere from 30 to 50 just that are consistent working out there on the desert at a time, somewhere around there. But it's pretty crazy how many people that are actually signed up to it. But other than that, that's all I got, Stacy.
Aaron, I want to thank you very, very much for jumping in and covered that. Folks, he hadn't even seen that presentation, like I mentioned. So thank you very much for jumping in and doing that.
We'll see you in a bit.
Thanks. And there you are, Dana. You ready? Oh, you're muted. There you go.
Pardon? Welcome, everybody. I'm Dana Trotner, the Eastern Idaho Contractors Association President and owner of INL Mechanical. Next slide, please. Eastern Idaho Contractors is a group of representatives of contractors, subcontractors, specialties, suppliers, and vendors. Our major focus has been the Idaho National Laboratory projects. As a service to our members, our board of directors interfaces regularly with the different M&O contractors who manage the INL facility for the Department of Energy. The ECA board is made up of 6 elected contractors and suppliers. At these meetings, we introduce the organization, discuss our goals, and establish a working dialogue, as well as bring up your issues, problems, and concerns. The ECA board works diligently to keep things flowing smoothly. The duties on behalf of the association include preparing and conducting safety meetings, attending new upcoming meetings as project lists are provided. We will send them to members, recruiting memberships, and public relations. ECA has coordinated training seminars, biannual membership meetings. We send our monthly newsletters and also attach the new project lists. We conduct bi-monthly safety meetings in conjunction with Battelle Energy Alliance for the entire membership. We send the total membership list to promote utilizing each other's services within our ranks, including the vendors. These membership lists can also be provided to contract specialists for Battelle Energy Alliance. They generate their bid list from these potential suppliers and contractors lists and for purchasing materials of their own operations. ECA has a strong relationship with our congressmen and senators, and we have met with them to discuss the future INL budgets and issues regarding construction at the National Lab. ECA's vision for the future is very positive. We have an excellent working relationship with the M&O contractors, and they have shown us they want ECA's strength in numbers to promote our new laboratory and its mission. ECA's board has and will continue to strive for a better work environment. Remember, our voice is significantly recognized when we all band together. Next slide, please. The INL construction projects can vary from very complex to everyday type normal construction packages. We work in harmony with Battelle Energy Alliance. BEA has opened channels for communications and questions regarding bidding and performing contracts at the INL. Our group of contractors has in the past assisted new contractors with the correct forms, how to properly fill them out, and when they are required. There's a partnership between BEA and our Contractors Association. This has proven to provide a much more stable and safe work environment. We welcome any questions, and I can be contacted anytime at the number and email listed on this page. We want to tell you how important, as Ed mentioned, safety is to our contractor group. We have a very excellent record at the INL, and we try and stay on top of that and use lessons learned to prevent future events from happening with similar ones. So Ed is correct in saying senior. I am officially a senior citizen this year. So with that, I thank you very much, and please feel free to contact me anytime. Thank you. Aaron?
Well, yeah, Dana, boy, I didn't realize I was that fast coming back this way. Apologize for that. Yeah, so here you guys get to listen to me again on about the subcontract work office. So I am the subcontract work office lead, also Davis Bacon chairman, but that's why I talked about a little bit about he was able to speak on the site stabilization agreement a little bit. So we work closely. So the subcontract work office really works closely to a lot of entities across the site here, across the INL BEA. You know, we basically ensure the oversight and planning and field administration of services performed by either service contractors and construction contractors. And you know, we basically partner, like I said, with a lot of organizations across there, such as procurement, construction management, project management, a lot of these entities that we partner with to ensure that, and you've heard it a lot, you know, that the safety culture and make sure that we get across to you guys that you guys are protected and ensure that you guys have the best service possible so that you guys can do your jobs safely and efficiently. Basically what the subcontract work office purpose is here. And a couple of the items that we oversee or look at is there's what's called the new hire packet. Anytime you bring a new contractor and hire somebody, that they bring on they have a packet, and it's basically 3 forms that you fill out and submit so you can get badged. And that's usually provided by your technical point of contact, or in this case with construction, it'd be your CFRs provide that to you, or probably more case right now, security and badging. There's also the Real ID Act, and hopefully you're all familiar with that, especially living in Idaho with the STAR card and all that stuff. That has been extended to October 1st due to COVID. So hopefully, I know there's a few states that have not been certified yet, but as of October 1st, 2021 of this year, that will be fully enforced. So that will be watched at on our security and badging folks, but they'd be able to speak to that a little bit better than me on that. But just be cognizant of that is going to be required. I-9 acceptable documents, those Form I-9s, that actually helps fill, that's part of your new hire packet and part of those sections in there on those forms. It's basically do you have a social security card, driver's license, just proof of idea about who you are is really who you are. And also if you are employed, it's basically your employment that you are, whoever you're employed with, you have proof of that as well. So go ahead and next slide. All right, the new hire process. It's been quite a process for hiring and bringing new subcontractors on and the education. But as I mentioned before, there's those three forms, as you can see there, that will be sent to you, and it's really important that those 3 forms get filled out and get sent to the appropriate persons, whether it be back to the technical point of contact, or as you see there, it's listed on the forms at the persec@inl.gov. When you fill those out, though, it's very important that we read those forms and get them sent to the right spot so they can get all that sent properly. So that's part of badging. So badging. So once those 3 forms are filled out and sent in, then this gets reviewed by a lot of people. Those personnel that review it are, there's 3. There's training, there's personal security, and there's the SWO office, which is me. And so these forms need to be filled out correctly. Those first 3 forms you see there, in order to even get training sent to you, because there are certain trainings that can be emailed to you to get a minimum what's called a BAO badge, basically a basic access to be able to come and work and be able to provide your services at the site. And so in order to do that, personnel security reviews these forms, ensures they're filled out correctly. And once they are, then they let training know that, hey, these persons are legit, that's good to go, send them the training. And then the training will email you, or you guys can come into our training facilities, which for construction is out at the gate, out at CFA. Out there, they have a training facility out there, or like say they have CBT web-based, CBT computer-based trainings that can be emailed to you that you can do in your office to ensure you get that done. And once that's done, then as the subcontract work office, us in there will be able to ensure that those 2 are created and taken place. There's also one other form, which I will talk about here in a little bit. It's called the 436.12 occupational medical. It's a good lead in to the next slide to ensure that that's filled out as well. And then we will approve you, and you will be able to get a badge and get a picture and come in and go through those procedures and obtain that so you guys can go to work. It does take some time. Remember this, it does take some time. So you got to allow some time to be able to get these badges, anywhere from days to up to a couple weeks, depending on what your location is, where you're coming from, how big the check is for the and how well these forms are filled out. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Yeah, so as I mentioned, that was one of these forms. One of our important duties as the SWO office to ensure that we follow 10 CFR 851. This is from a federal law to be able to ensure that we are looking out for your looking out for your worker safety and health. The whole purpose is 10 CFR 851, and it's within our RD 1001 in the subcontractor requirements manual that if you come and work for us, DOE, for BEA at site more than 30 days in a 12-month period, which most construction people do in 12 months, they're definitely on our place more than 30 days, that you will be enrolled in this program. And it's an automatic enrollment through BEA, and it ensures that you will be covered in case something happens to you in the future. So it requires BEA to track the subcontractor employer's work history, and each subcontract that this employee has worked on. So you can have one employee that may have worked on 5 to 10 projects throughout this 12-month period, and we need one of these forms that I mentioned before is a 436.12, which is the INL subcontractor verification form for this compliance to 10 CFR 851 for each project they're working on. So that's one thing I know a lot of contractors get confused with. Hey, I just sent one in for that project. Why do we need to send another one? Well, it's because you never know. Each project's at a different location, different area, different purpose. So we need one of those forms for each one of those projects. And once we receive that form, as well as just double checking on all that new hire packet, as well as the training, we can authorize security to badge you. Go ahead, next slide. Okay. There is the example right there of the current form for the I know it's probably really hard to see right there for you guys, but that is the 436.12 form. It's a very simple form. There's 2 columns. The right side of that form is filled out by your technical point of contact / CFR / hopefully whoever, the project manager, whatever, that needs to be filled out by BEA personnel. And then once that's filled out, that is sent to you guys, emailed to you as contractors. And then on the left-hand side, those 7 or 8 items there will be filled out by you. And then that will be emailed directly to, it's a very simple email, swo@inl.gov, SWO@inl.gov, and it's on that form of what email to send it to. And simple, that's really a simple form, and that way we file it away and ensure that that is kept track of for each individual person and the jobs that is per our federal requirements. Go ahead and next. So just kind of in a nutshell, just to review kind of what the SWO is all about and what kind of some highlights about us is we ensure that the 10 CFRA 51 is adhered to and applicable, and we make sure that you as a subcontractor do comply with this law. We identify the submitting, we identify and submit make sure that the form is correctly submitted. And we audit that too as well for all the different subcontracts the contractor is working on to ensure that the proper forms are there so that your workers and yourself are protected under that. So also another deal is that if you are as a general, or even if you're an electrician and you have some electrical company and you have to hire some lower tier contractors, other contractors to do like you have to hire a carpet layer or something, or installer. So you got to ensure that all those lower tiers that you hire, ensure that their 436.12s are turned into you and you submit those for them on behalf of all your lower tier companies. That is your responsibility to ensure every single worker that works under this, whether they're your employee or they're an employee of another company that you have hired or contracted with to help you with the project, it is your responsibility to ensure that those are properly filled out and submitted to us at the SWO. So yeah, so with that, we make sure that that is, again, the 10 CFR is applicable, and all the requirements are ensured, especially work control too, before we send it out to a procurement action, before we send it out to you guys as an RFP, that all that stuff is in place before you guys, so that you are informed and understand that what is expected of you once you review the package and be able to bid on a project. We will not, with INL Security will not badge a subcontractor employee until the SWO. So we are the final say. I mean, we are the gatekeeper before it gets there. So just to double check, just to ensure that you guys fill out your new hire packet and it's sent to persec@inl.gov, as we mentioned previously. That has got to be sent there. All your badging, all your forms and paperwork there, and then the 436.12 gets sent to the SWO. So there's a lot of paperwork involved here. I mean, it's a lot of items there that you guys got to ensure is correct. But like I say, we're here to help. We're here to call and contact at any time to be able to help you through the process. We're definitely open to. We say we're here to help and ensure that you guys are successful, because if you guys are successful, we're successful, and that's what it's all about on this. There's a link there, as you see at the bottom, to our subcontractor requirements manual, where you find the RDs as well that I put on there. But other than that, say if you have any questions or further comments, go go ahead and put them in, and we'll hopefully answer them at the end of this deal. And other than that, I guess I'll throw you over to Sean Going. Good luck, Sean.
Okay, there we go. Now I'm unmuted. My name's Sean Going. I'm the construction services manager. I just wanted to go over the construction culture and expectations that we have with subcontractors that we work with. So basically, who are we? You've heard a lot of people refer to the construction field reps or the CFRs. Those are the guys who work with me. They are your technical point of contact. They're the boots on the ground interface that you'll have once you hit the field. Usually they'll be there a little bit on the upfront, but they are your technical point of contact once you reach the field. And they have a lot of different hats that they wear. One, they're there to mentor you. They're there to help you. We're a paperwork heavy organization, so they can help you with how to get through some of the paperwork and understand our processes. They're not there to do it for you, but they are definitely there to help you. They're also there to ensure that we meet the mission of the INL by providing the quality product that we get. And one of the big things that we do is create an infrastructure. And the other thing that the CFRs are they're also oversight. They are also the ones that are there watching to make sure, is the product being quality? Are we as the INL receiving what we have in our contract? And they're also there to help with the safety oversight. Next slide, please. I'm going to kind of talk just the INL values and how it relates to us. These are the 6 INL values: excellence, integrity, ownership, teamwork, safety, inclusivity. And I'm just going to go through and how that relates to our construction work here on the INL. Next slide. Excellence. We perform a lot of work in a lot of different environments. We have facilities scattered across the INL, pretty much the whole 892 square miles plus in town. We work in nuclear facilities, we work in non-nuclear facilities, we work on virgin soil, we work on facilities that or areas that have had facilities built on them before. And we also do this in secured areas and non-secured areas with security guys. So with all of that, it's kind of a little bit high stress in some ways, because it's sometimes an environment that people aren't used to. But even in those situations, we look for excellence in everything that we do. Our client, who is DOE, they expect the high quality of product, because a lot of these things that we build, there really isn't a room for error once they go online. So that's one of our big parts that my team plays, and we expect from our partners in the construction community, is that excellent standard that's demanded by the DOE. Next slide. Okay, so how do we help ensure excellence? So when you start as a new subcontractor with us, we usually put you on lower risk projects. We're not going to put you working in a highly secured area that has radiological controls. That just sets you up for failure. We usually put you on smaller projects, depending on the size of company you have. That could be as small as redoing sidewalks, just so you can get the flow of paper, the flow of work as it happens here. So with that, to work here, we have a qualified embedded superintendent. That individual, will, one, go through some computer-based training. They also have to provide proof that they've worked as a superintendent and they have the experience to do it. And then they go through an interview process with myself, usually a safety representative and a few of my leads, just more to that we can convey the expectations of a superintendent. So we have to have a vetted superintendent, qualified superintendent, before we even start a project with a new contractor. We need to make sure that you know your special conditions and understand them. We have it has been mentioned before, the subcontractor requirements manual, the SRM. On site, that's, that is, a lot of times you'll hear that's your Bible. So those are the requirements that are laid out in the special conditions. It'll give you your safety requirements. It'll give you your environmental requirements, your radiological requirements. It'll give you all that you need to know to be successful, as long as you're following those requirements. One of the big things, we also need to make sure your employees are trained. I'm sure we've talked about through some of these things. We provide training where in the areas that are needed. That's a pass-through cost for each project, but it's up to the subcontractor to make sure that your employees continue to be current on their training. Most of our requirements are OSHA 1926. Once in a while, we'll get into 1910, but you also have that accessible to your guys on site. We require that each morning before you start work that you have a pre-job brief that covers the hazards with the crews that will be working, and that will be signed off by the superintendent and also the CFR. We require that you have a job safety analysis. The job safety analysis will cover every aspect of the work that will be done under your contract and how the hazards will be mitigated. And then also you need to have the SDSs for the chemicals that you'll be using. We also require a short and long-term schedule. The short-term schedules are very important, especially when we're working with facilities, because those are used to keep you rolling. We have to request a lot of services from the facilities, lockout, tagouts, shutdowns, outages, different things like that. Those short range schedules is how we communicate with the facility that we're working in what we need and when we will need it. So they make us successful. They make you successful if those schedules are kept up. And then the vendor data system. We need to make sure the materials that we've specified are the materials we're getting, and that's part of the vendor data system. Next slide, please. Subcontractor requirements manual, I kind of covered this. It basically has all the requirements that you'll need in the different areas. Most of the safety requirements that are in that, they're the RD 2000 series, a lot of them are based right around OSHA. So they're only 1 or 2 pages and they refer to OSHA. We do have a handful out there, like the excavation, the lockout tagout, where they're a little bit larger because we do have our own requirements above and beyond OSHA for those particular activities. And they are out there on the vendor portal, as Aaron mentioned. Next slide, please. Integrity. This is a big one.
Sean, we've lost your audio. Hold on a second. Let's see if the system will catch up with us. Can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay, we lost you after you said integrity is a big one.
Okay, no problem. So integrity is a big one. Sorry for losing you. We encourage that, basically, we encourage everybody to ask questions, have a questioning attitude. That would go from your guys at the deck plate all the way to your front office. So as you work at the INL, we have a lot of legacy facilities. Once again, like we've said, we're very paperwork heavy. We encourage you guys to ask questions before they start a process if there's something that they're concerned about or something they're worried about. Taking that time out, that step back to ask the question to make sure that we're doing the right thing in the right manner buys us a lot of one, it buys us a lot of trust between each other, and two, it also can stave off, if you will, heartburn. Because if we decide, well, I think this is how it's supposed to happen, but I'm not quite sure, and I don't step back and ask that question, sometimes we end up in a bad spot. So we always encourage everybody, whether it be a laborer, carpenter, anybody, to ask the question to their superintendent, and then have, if we need to, get the CFR involved. We encourage timeouts. That would be that step back, and target tailgates, which would be just very informal meetings that you have right before you start a new evolution. If you're working on, say, putting up formwork and you have to move to placing concrete, we encourage all our teams to take just a couple minutes. Is everything what we expect it to be? Do we have all the tooling to do the job? Okay, we're ready to go to work. We found that taking that small target tailgate step back, one, helps not have problems, and two, it helps the contractor where, okay, everything's ready to go. I'm not sending an individual run into the tool shed 5-10 times. We require everyone to demonstrate honest and professional behaviors at all times. Sometimes construction can be very stressful. We understand that, but even when it gets stressful, honest and professional behaviors are expected from everyone who comes on our sites. And then every decision is made in the best interest of the project. And that's, just making sure that as you go through, there are cost-cutting things that can happen out there that are totally in the best interest of the project. Unfortunately, on occasion, there are ones that aren't. And so we expect that, as those decisions are made, that they're made at the best interest of the project. And if we need to have a discussion about, hey, this is changing our contract, then we can have that discussion. Next slide, please. Ownership. Like I said, we're document heavy on both sides, and that's part of ownership, is to actually make sure those documents are in, that they're done correctly, and they're into us timely. We strive to learn from each other's successes, from failures. I think Dana mentioned that we share both the successes that we've had and the failures that we've had, often with ICA, so that information can get out and we can all grow together. And then we are accountability for our site and for our actions. We really, our general contractors and our sub tiers that we have working are so impressive. They keep their sites extremely clean, extremely kept. And they're always apt to say, hey, if I made an error, they raise their hand, say, yep, I made the error. And so, it's always nice to have people take ownership for the work for both sides, the good and the bad. And that's what we expect here at INL. Next slide, please. So work control ownership, we've touched on some of these. Job safety analysis, JSAs, everything needs to be covered on them. This is a living document that we require. So if you get into a situation where either the way that you've addressed the hazard in the JSA, you want to change it and address it a different way, or if there's a new hazard that either you missed or got added on to because of a change in the work, needs to be added to the JSA. We're pretty robust. We're pretty easy to get those changes done quickly so they don't hold you up. But the ownership of making sure those changes and that work control is in there is yours. But we are definitely there to assist to make sure that if there needs to be something changed, that we can do that. Like I said, the pre-job brief is a daily meeting with all the crews to cover all the work that and the work scope that will be occurring. You talk about the mitigation of the hazards, talk about the PPE, and this is really supposed to be a discussion with your crews. So we encourage everyone to have that feedback from the crews coming back to supervision to the crews, because oftentimes a sub tier or even the guys that are on the deck plate, they're the ones who are going to say, hey, what about this, and bring up the hazards that they see, and make the environment safer to work in. Target tailgates I've discussed with being able to perform the work, taking that quick step back and analyzing, is everything okay. And then the last one is the daily observation, and it kind of ties to the pre-job brief. Often we're working in other facilities. These facilities are ran by different facility managers. In a lot of ways, we're working in someone else's house. And so we actually, the CFR, will work with the superintendent, get the work that is scheduled for the day onto the daily job authorization, and then have it signed by the facility. That allows us to go to work in that facility, and that facility knows what we're doing. And so, we need to have the ownership to know that, hey, we have a scope of work for that day. If that changes, we have the pre-job brief and the daily authorization that will need to change also if we want to do a different scope of work. Next slide, please. Okay, teamwork. We really try to team with our subcontracting community. BA or INL management often meets with both the ECA board and ECA as a body to share information. We try to get feedback from them to see, hey, where can we get better as the one holding the contract for so many. So we try to team with our subcontracting community. We don't want to be a good cop, bad cop. We want to be a team with you. We're here, as I've mentioned, to mentor you. With new contractors coming on, we are a little bit different to work in than even some of the DoD facilities that I've been to. So we try to help mentor you to understand that these are our processes and this is how to be successful. And we do truly want to succeed, because your success is our success, and it's kind of a circular thing. When you succeed, my client DOE's happy with the work, then everyone wins, and we get more work to do. And we also strive to have an open line of communication. I often have subcontractors who will come to my office, sit down, and just have a discussion, whether it be, this is how work's going, this is something we see that we can do better. We strive to have that open line of communication, for the fact that we know a lot of times some of the best ideas are generated from the guys doing the work. I see things, or my staff may see things at a 10 or 30,000 foot level. You guys are right there in front of it and can actually tell us, hey, if we tweak this, it's going to make things so much easier. So teamwork is very important to us when it comes to the subcontracting community. Next slide.
We've lost you again. Try it now. Can you hear me? Okay, hold on. Let's give it a second. How about now?
Yep, now I got it.
There you go.
Thank you. so inclusivity, you know, we need new subcontractors to help us continue to be successful. Right now, obviously, we can't look at in the crystal ball and tell you, hey, we have work for the next 20 years. Political things change, and this is a, you know, a government facility. But for right now, the way things look, we have a lot of work that will be coming to us. And so, one, we just need individuals and companies to fill that need of doing the work. But also, new contractors bring new ideas. They bring new methods. They bring new abilities, and we need that. And they also, you know, bring a lot of diverse points of view. So to be successful in the future, we need that new mix that new contractors will bring. Next slide, please. Okay, safety. Number one, I grew up in a construction family. I started as a pipe fitter, and then I've made my career basically doing construction. I've worked multi-billion-dollar projects all the way to just houses. The big thing for me, the big thing for my staff, the big thing for INL is everyone goes home safe. That is probably the number one, or is the number one priority that we have, is everyone goes home safe. Because of that, everyone on site, whether it be the subcontractors, anyone working for the INL, they all have stop work authority. That means if someone has a question, someone thinks something's not looking right, they can ask whoever's doing the work to stop and take a step back. Is this right? Is this correct? And we can have that conversation. And 99.9% of the time, it's, yep, this is how it's supposed to be. Thank you for asking the question. And we go back to work. On occasion, we do find that someone spotted something that wasn't right or wasn't safe, and then we thank them for that, because they're looking out for our safety. And that's what we ask all of our subcontractors who come on the INL to do, is to embrace that strong safety culture and team with us. And that really starts with your guys' supervision, who's on the ground with us. That's why we vet the superintendents. And then as I mentioned, we encourage a questioning attitude. Back to that stop work authority, that's a questioning attitude. And it's sometimes hard to walk up to somebody and ask, are you doing this correctly, because it doesn't look right? But that questioning attitude has saved a lot of problems throughout the years. Just recently, we had an electrician have that questioning attitude when they did a lockout. And in fact, came to find out the lockout didn't cover what they were going to work on. No one was hurt, no one was exposed to any issues, and it was able to be addressed very quickly because that individual had a questioning attitude. So we encourage everybody who comes on site to have that questioning attitude and embrace our safety culture. Next slide, please. Each company, because we want to have that safety culture, these are the requirements for pre-qualification of a company that we ask for. The subcontractor needs to provide these numbers on their safety performance to us to be able to be approved to work here. Now, as you can see, there's a list of, if you're at these rates and below, it's pretty much a clean bill of health. Go ahead. If you're at the rates that are shown, that hey, if you're higher than this or higher, it doesn't mean you can't work at the INL. It does mean that we're going to have some more conversations and find out what's behind those rates, what happened, why are they happening, what are you doing to ensure your rates are coming down and your safety posture is in a good place. So we wanted to let you know that before you're allowed, you need to be pre-approved to work at INL due to your safety numbers. Next slide, please. And our goal is 0 accidents. BEA is committed to having 0 accidents and have that mindset and philosophy through our management. That's why our safety policies are in place. We ask that everything that you do is safe, compliant, both in the safety realm and the environmental realm. And that we continue to foster that. So our philosophy is, zero accidents is the goal. We believe it's achievable, especially if everyone starts to foster that questioning attitude and embrace the culture that we have. Next slide, please. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Sean. I'm going to real quickly cover registration in the vendor portal. You can access the vendor portal at vendor.inl.gov, and all vendors have to be registered in the vendor portal in order to do business with us. So how do you get started with doing business at INL? First, you need to get that Duns and Bradstreet number. Most companies who are already established have that number. That will be changing eventually to a unique identifier that will be assigned out of the system for awards management. The schedule was for December of 2020 for that, and now I hear August of 22. So that will be taking place in the future. Obtain an employee identification number. We're going to need that. Small businesses must complete that registration in SAM. And pretty soon, all businesses when that unique identifier comes into place, all businesses will have to be registered in SAM. Complete the registration in the vendor portal, and then contact me at either small.business@inl.gov or stacy.francis@inl.gov. Send me your capability statement, but I like construction companies to reach out to me so I can then get a meeting together between the construction safety folks, construction management, and our construction contract specialists so that we can understand what your skills are and what it is that you're interested in doing with us. The vendor portal, procurement.inl.gov is going to be your hub for information. That's where the vendor portal is located, and that's also where we post opportunities. We are working to make the opportunities postings more robust and get more out there. So continue to check on that as we work that internally to get more things posted. And that's what that opportunities page looks like. And Zachary, we're to you. I did want to mention that as construction companies, when you enter a 2.3 NAICS code as your primary NAICS code in the vendor portal, it's going to pop up a environmental and safety and health section that you need to put in the data that Sean's team looks at. So your EMR ratings, your TCRs, and those kind of things. So that's a separate approval process for construction vendors that use the 2.3 NAICS code.
All right, so just a quick introduction for me. My name is Zach Bennett. I'm the construction contracts lead for Battelle Energy Alliance, and I lead a group that consists of 6 of myself and 6 other contract specialists that deal with construction contracts, primarily Davis-Bacon covered work. Can I get the next slide? So now we've gone through some of the steps. Stacy's talked a little bit, and Sean Going have talked a little bit about the process of getting onto the bidders lists, learning our processes and going through those steps. Now, once you've gotten onto that bidders list and we've established you and start putting you onto
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now, Zach? Okay, hold on.
Okay, I've got you. Can you hear me?
Yep,
Okay, where did I cut out?
getting on a bid list.
Okay, so now you've gotten onto a bid list, and I want to reiterate what Sean had said about new companies. It's our policy not to, when we bring a new company in, we want to bring you in and give you contracts, or at least have you bidding contracts where you can be successful. So we wouldn't give you a $2 or $3 million nuke facility renovation right out of the gates. It'd be, we generally try new contractors by putting them on smaller bid lists or on smaller contract value bid lists and go from there. Primarily the type of contracts that we use here are firm fixed price contracts awarded to the lowest evaluated bidder. These are design bid build contracts. We do some design build work and also some best value work, but I would say the majority of what we do here for construction Davis-Bacon covered work is design bid build lowest evaluated bid work. So now you've been on a bidders list. How our system works is we will receive a package from a program. When I say we, it's us in construction contracts. We'll receive a package and we prepare an RFP, a request for proposal. Now the RFP consists of a draft contract, the request for proposal document itself, which is the instructions that provide what we're looking for in the RFP, the reps and certs, which would be what you certify to and also how you provide your proposed price, and then the additional scoping documents, and those consist of drawings, special conditions, specifications, and any other additional information that outlines what the scope of work is. So the RFP would be packaged. Generally, we'll put that together and we'll send it out to you in an email. And in that email, we'll outline when the mandatory pre-proposal meeting is going to be, what facility it's going to be, locations, and also when we need to be notified when you're planning to attend. Many of the local contractors here have already been out on site and they have site access badges. But if you're a new company, we need to know if you're coming and who you're bringing out so that we can get visitors requests put in for you. Generally, we need 2 to 3 days advance notice for that. And that will be outlined in the RFP document itself. We do hold a mandatory pre-proposal meeting on site. And this reason that we hold this is it's usually about a 1-hour meeting, and we hold it out at the facility and generally in a conference room where we get construction management, engineering, safety, and any other organizations that have an interest in the project. We bring them all together along with all of the contractors that will be bidding the work, and we go over a overview of what the scope is, safety requirements, any of the special considerations for the project. And then after that meeting is done, we actually walk the site down. Reason that we make this a mandatory meeting is we want all bidders who are going to be bidding as a general contractor and providing us pricing, we want them all to be there to see the exact scope of work and see the current condition of what the job site looks like. As I said again, any new contractors who currently don't have site access badges will need to have advance notice so that we can get you on site. If you don't have an access badge, you'll have to be escorted by someone, and it just takes some time to get that coordinated. Part of what you'll see with the RFP package itself is a draft contract. Our contracts consist of about six sections. The first section outlines just a brief overview of what the scope is. The second section will outline any government material that we might be providing. The third section is a list of all of the applicable documents that apply to the contract. Our contracts aren't written in a way to have all of the specifications, all of the other details included in the contract, but it references all of those requirements in section 3 of the contract. Moving down through section 4, that's a lot of the government applicable flow downs. Section 5 is it goes over order of precedence. Section 6 talks about the pricing and also change clauses. 7 outlines some of the submittal requirements prior to notice to proceed, and 8 outlines our invoicing process and also who the responsible people are who have control and authority on the projects. Some of the high notes to touch on is we do require liability insurance. We require payment bonding for any contract that's over $25,000 and performance bonding for anything that's over $150,000. And that bond is for the value of the total contract. We do invoke the Davis-Bacon and also site stabilization agreement. Our requirement is that your employees are paid the higher of either of those two requirements. Davis-Bacon does apply because it's federally funded work, and the site stabilization applies to work that's out on our desert facility, and our requirement is based on which of those rates are higher, that you pay the higher rate. Generally, the majority of the time, the site stabilization agreement is a little bit higher than the Davis-Bacon rate. Markup rates on changes. Generally, we authorize a 15% overhead markup and a 10% profit markup on change order work, and also a 5% general contractor markup on any sub tiers that they have working under them. Training costs to keep things fair. We allow training costs that are required by BEA, that are the training that is provided by BEA. Those costs will be paid for as a direct pass-through. So the cost of your employees' time will be handled with a direct pass-through change order. And then forward pricing, part of the contract, part of the submittal documents that are required with your proposal is a forward pricing document. And that is where we establish what your rates for equipment and labor will be for any potential future changes. Next slide, please. So again, the RFP overview, it looks like I touched on most of this stuff already, but the RFP overview, again, it's the instructions for the mandatory pre-proposal conference, our selection methods. That's where it will outline what the requirements are. Sometimes in an RFP, we may have a larger project where we require, when we're looking at contractors to bid, we may put in what we call go, no-go requirements. And those may consist of, if you as a general contracting company have X amount of years of experience doing a specific type of work scope, or if you have employees that have X amount of experience, if you have certain bonding capacities, all of those kind of things may be what would be considered a go, no-go requirement. So you would either qualify for those requirements or you would be disqualified in your proposal. We outline anything else that's specific to that in the RFP section. Predominantly, as I said, we go with the lowest evaluated bidder that has a qualified superintendent and safety rep. And that's a little bit what Sean talked about, was going through that process of getting a qualified superintendent, going through an interview process, just making sure that person who's going to be running the job is familiar with the safety requirements and the construction management requirements associated with the project. In the RFP document, it will outline the proposal due date, and then there's a section there that outlines any additional requirements. Section 3.4, those would consist of, we have a document called a Proc 1413 where you provide the sub-tier contractors that you'll be using, the 1837, which is the forward pricing form, your safety and health records, your agreement to buy into our safety program, and a few other things. Then in the RFP itself, also it talks about the
Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Zach? Can you hear me?
Nothing.
Okay, hold on.
I've got you now.
Okay, I think it's the wireless connection that you have there in the office that's causing the disconnect. So we're
See,
about done. We'll make it through.
Okay, I'm hard lined in, so, but anyway.
Oh, okay.
Going on to the reps and certs overview. The reps and certs will consist of you providing your pricing, your proposed pricing, your completion date. It also requires that you be registered through SAM, excluded parties. You certify certain things that you're not involved in certain nefarious business practices, and also that you have not been currently listed in as an excluded government contractor. Also in the RFP itself, but between the time that we have the pre-proposal meeting and the time that the bid due date is, usually there will be a few questions that come in from the contractors, and we address those questions via the addendum process. So in that Prop 2120, that's where you would acknowledge any of those addendum that we bring out that provide additional information for the proposals. Next slide, there is one. Okay. And I guess that turns it over to Eric.
And Eric is not going to make it today. He is, well, we're an hour ahead of schedule. And so for those of us that were looking to join us a little later, we've just totally knocked this out. So he's not going to make it. So I wanted to bring up a couple things before we go to Q&A. Amy mentioned these earlier, and I just wanted to restate them. There is a couple of public comment periods that are open right now on draft environmental impact statements. And there's the address links there for the Marvel micro reactor, and then the versatile test reactor will be holding public meetings. And that's a link there that will take you to the DOE headquarters webpage that will provide the detailed information on when those two public meetings are. They are virtual, so you can sign in and participate in those. The next thing I want to promote is our next webinar series on February 10th. Elise Miller will be joining us, and we will be demystifying service contracting here at the Idaho National Laboratory. So I think that one will be very beneficial for a lot of people. So I'm looking forward to that one. And we're working to have a very special guest in March. I'm not going to announce who that is yet because it might fall through, but you can watch the webpage for what our March webinar will be. If I can't get the one I'm looking for, we will come up with another topic and we will get that posted out there so you can get registered. For those of you who are left with me here on the webinar, can you bring your cameras back up for my presenters? We've had some questions come in. It looks like Michelle's done a pretty good job of getting those all answered on the Q&A forum. One of the questions that we did have was, let me scroll back up here and see. Sean, and maybe you can answer this one. Eric deferred this to you. The question is, what are your recommendations for small businesses looking to enter into the advanced nuclear construction space? Or Zach, maybe it's for you too. Do you have an answer for that on how they get involved in the advanced nuclear that's coming up?
It might be more of Zach's, because I mean, as far as I understand it, we may or may not, our division may or may not be part of that construction. We'll probably be helping get utilities to it and getting everything ready for it. But actually the construction, I believe that's a different organization doing that. Correct, Zach?
Yeah, I think that is correct. It'll be a standalone org that's separate from us.
Thank you for that. Yeah, most of those, the big contracts, the VTR is going to be an engineering procure construct, an EPC contract. So Bechtel was awarded that contract and they will be responsible for the construction of that actual facility. And the last I heard, they were going to have their supply chain webpage up and running this fall. So keep an eye out on that as VTR moves forward.
One other recommendation I would make while we're kind of on that topic is if there's anyone that's on this call that's looking to start working at the INL, one of the recommendations that we often make is that you talk to Dave Inskeep and you find out what contractors are currently signatory to the SSA and that are working out here. And if you provide a sub-tier service or a specialty service, reach out to those contractors and see if you can offer working with them or offer them pricing on some of their bids. It's always a good idea, in my opinion, to get your feet wet as a sub-tier instead of as an outright general contractor with the INL. It'll help you understand some of the requirements for paperwork, some of the safety requirements, any additional things that might feel different than a commercial construction practice. It's my recommendation always that you try and come in as a sub-tier to someone who has some experience out here. Then you can learn the process without having the full exposure of being the general contractor.
I was going to mention that too, so thank you, Zach. In general, what's the level of clearances that we need? Do we need Qs? Are the majority of construction workers BAOs? I know that up at SMC it's cleared.
I would say that the majority, probably 95% plus of the work that we do just requires a building access only badge. The work that does require clearances is generally an L clearance requirement for construction work. There's not a lot of it that happens where it requires a clearance just because of the time frame that it takes to get cleared people. Most times when there is a construction project that is in a sensitive area, we'll figure out some way to be able to screen those sensitive areas or be able to have some type of an escort program to where we provide an escort and they take you into the areas where you need to be and only those areas. So just the amount of time that it takes to get those clearances sometimes is prohibitive to getting work done. But in the event that there are clearances required for construction work, it's usually only an L clearance.
Okay, thank you. The question is, and maybe Erin, you can address this, is the process for architect engineers to get on site similar to what you've discussed for the construction workers?
Tech engineers as far as being able to be employed by BEA or offer their services as a service place?
Service provider.
Yeah, a service provider, that, that's kind of more of ensuring that they are registered as one in the vendor portal and making sure their NAICS codes are there, right? And being recognized by, and I don't know who, engineering services, I think there are some contracts already set up that provide overflow services as far as engineering, architecture, stuff like that with BEA. So my suggestion, maybe if they're interested in that, maybe get a hold of some of those companies or call, I'm sure, I can't think of his name now. Somebody help me out. I know where his office is.
Kurt Ryrie.
Kurt Ryrie, thank you. Yeah, maybe somehow get a hold of Kurt and see what his needs are, what their needs are. I really can't speak to what their needs and anything that way, or how to even get on here. All I see is the actual statements of work of what the needs are once the needs arise. I know we're in a huge need for engineering and architecture service, all that stuff for that. It's definitely a need for BEA to offer to get those services. But I know careers.gov, but other than that, Kurt Ryrie would probably be a good contact point to start with.
And I can help make those connections as well.
I say
Okay, Randy Hawes, you posted a question on here, and I'm not quite sure I understand it. So I'm going to try and unmute you. And could you explain the question? This question is, does INL and DOE participate in partnering agreements with subcontractors for significant projects? Let me see. Randy, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. So I remember in days past, and this was before the ICP and INL split, but when we built ICDF, for instance, there was a partner agreement between BPWI, us. At that time, I was Stoller when we built ICDF, but we signed a partnering agreement, and it basically laid out the details of the project, how we were going to perform and how we were going to help each other out, what the ground rules were for performance. We also included all of the stakeholders. Now, of course, I was talking about more a significant, complete building or a more significant scope of work. But I was just wondering if DOE is it still amenable to that, and does BDA support that approach as well?
Zach, do you have an answer?
I'm not familiar with those type of processes.
Randy, I'm not either. I mean, it's certainly something that I'm willing to check into for you. I know that our philosophy is we want to do what's ever best to accomplish the scope and have everybody be successful. But if you want to reach out to me privately, we can try and track that down.
Okay, yeah, it's, and it's an Army Corps of Engineers philosophy. We do it on a lot of our Army Corps projects. It's a requirement, so, but this could be a best practice.
Thank you. I will, let's discuss it. There's a question here on how do subcontractors get to know what opportunities are available. Again, we're going to try and do more posting out on the opportunities portal and let folks know that way. I think ECA can help with that as well. Dana meets with the construction folks, and the Eastern Idaho Contractors Association has a pretty good idea of what's coming down as far as work. So I think, Dana, you can help with that as well, right? Okay. Let me see what else I got. Ed, here's a question for you. Thanks for joining us again. There's the impression that the safety culture can make it harder to do work at INL. What would you say to dispel that notion? Oh, he's gone.
I think he was muted, or he must not have
Yeah,
been.
well, can you hear me now?
We can hear you, yes.
Okay, I didn't get to hear the question. I was trying, you got me back on camera, but when I turned on the camera, I lost the sound.
Okay.
So I apologize.
We'll just take you answering the question then. There's the impression that the safety culture, that safety culture can make it harder to work for INL. What would you do to dispel that notion?
So I did answer that in the chat.
The
absolutely
participants can't see that though. The attendees can't see your answer.
Oh, okay. So I would absolutely say that the level of rigor with regard to protocols, quality, paper in general, processes is much higher at the INL. With regard to safety though, I guess I don't view our focus on safety as making it harder to work at the INL. I mean, our professional subcontractors, basically we're asking them to keep that focus as they execute work efficiently. In terms of activities to try to help validate that we know what we're doing and we know the hazards for the day, there's some extra items like the plan of the day or the pre-job briefs in the morning. Try to lay that out, but that's just best practice. That's not really even something special for the INL. It's just a good best practice. So my answer is yes, it's more rigorous to work here, but being safe, I don't believe is harder at the INL or make it harder.
Yeah, I liked what Josh Wheeler put in the questions, and I hope that all the attendees got to see that. But Josh says that it will not make it harder to do work for the INL, but it will be different than what you're used to doing. Josh is with Wheeler Electric, and they're a contractor for us. His second part is when it becomes a part of your company's own safety culture, your people will say to you that they realize that taking the extra time to pre-plan and work safely actually makes them more productive in the long run. So, Josh, I appreciate that comment. I think that that's exactly what we're hoping for with our safety culture here, and that it does trickle down and make a difference. Dana, this question's for you. Is ICA open to non-local contractors? And do you have to be a construction contractor to join? Oh, I think you're muted. Hold on, I'll unmute you. Well, there you go.
There we go. Okay. We welcome out-of-state, out-of-town contractors. We do not care where you are from at all. And what was the second part of that question, Stacy?
Do you have to be a construction contractor to join?
Well, we have both suppliers and vendors, engineering firms that are members of our association. As has been mentioned, we get a lot of information and we're able to get that out to all of our membership equally. So we welcome anybody, and I think we've had some out of town, out of area contractors join us in the past. As a matter of fact, during this, I've had a few firms reach out to me already. So look forward to talking to any of you.
That's great.
And I do not, on the safety question, I want to say that safety is a culture, definitely, and we do not feel like in our company that it causes it to be harder to perform work at the INL. It's actually quite the opposite. Once you get used to this culture and environment, you'll find that it doesn't take you any more time to do it safely than to just, bull into something and have something bad happen. So I've been working at the INL since 1982. I've seen a lot, and I've watched our safety culture with Battelle grow, and it continues to. Thank you.
That's great. Is there a way for the Idaho Association of General Contract members to get more information? Blake, I'm going to say that that's the same answer that I shared before. I would reach out to Dana and then also watch our opportunities webpage. And maybe there's some opportunity for the IAGC to collaborate with ICA a little bit. And I'm happy to help with that if you need it. Brock wants to know if there is a way to get a badge as a supplier so we can visit the construction sites to make both deliveries and sales calls. Brock, if there's a need for the badge, it's in the contract for deliveries. Right now, sales calls with COVID they're not happening. You've got to be, there's got to be a reason for you to be on site, to be interfacing with the folks that are out there. And so that may loosen up as, we move out of COVID, if that happens. But for right now, badges are just given out for specific contracts. Let me see if there's something else. Question here regarding motor coach and transportation suppliers. Does INL encourage or require commuting services? And would the people moving ground transportation provider contact track DOE, INL, BEA? Can you provide a list of the GCs? Clint, we do have our own transportation services here. We have a bus fleet that we run. If you want more information, why don't you get a hold of me, and I'd be happy to talk through that with you. Let's see if there's any other questions. I think that that's most up. Zach, this one's for you. What was the contact's name that Zach mentioned he could reach out to find out what contractors are currently working under? Oh, Dave Inskeep, the site labor coordinator, David Inskeep. And we're going to post this presentation, and I'm going to put the contact informations in this presentation. And there is a slide on the end of Dave's presentation of the different ways to get in touch with him and find out that information. So Mark, you'll be able to see that here in just a little bit when we get this presentation posted. We also recorded it, and as soon as we get it rendered and all of that, we will get the video posted as well.
And may I mention, just remember, site labor coordinator on your website, on any web browser you use, just type in site labor coordinator and it should pop up. You know, all the contact information and a lot of information you need that way.
Yep. Lee wants to know about fabricators and how they engage. Lee, back in November, I think, we did a webinar that was focused on fabrication. You can find that video and the presentations on the webpage at procurement.inl.gov, and that will, then you can watch that and see what it takes to do participate in fabrication here. Let me scroll back through these one more time, guys, and make sure that we've got them all. It looks like we've captured them all. So with that, I did not think that we would make it through this in an hour and 10 minutes, and I'm glad that we had some questions to go over. So again, I want to thank all the speakers, the presenters today. Without you, I couldn't do these because you're the people that are in the know. I'm just here to facilitate the meeting. So thank you for your participation. I appreciate that. Again, to those attendees on the line, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me at stacy.francis@inl.gov or small.business, because sometimes that one's easier to remember. Both of them come directly to me, small.business@inl.gov. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and close the event, and we will see you guys in February.